make more of that. So what we're doing is we're looking at the golden thread as a way of collecting information that is, first of all, electronic. It runs right the way through the design, construction, operations end of things, and then also transferable at the end. So it's a matter of defining what the golden thread's about. And what we've then looked at is making it so that we can cost justify the work that's being done by information managers on projects and also as asset managers. And how does that relate more than simply having a common data environment that's holding information? And the way of looking at that, we feel, is it creates, if you like, a DNA that's running through all of the different processes that people are working on the projects. And importantly, looking at this from a collaborative point of view, so that rather than information being collected simply for a purpose in a silo, then make sure that there's collaborative working to be able to pull all those things together. And the result of that is that we can identify why information is needed, who's gathering it, and how they're going about it, and also who's going to benefit from it and in what way. And looking at that from a cost savings perspective. So this group that we're forming at the moment, which I'd be interested to see if if any people here are interested in joining. Probably half of the people this morning in the meeting this morning have joined up. So you could be collaborating with some quite strong people to be able to say, right, we've got 9 steps there of coordinating information, and then that becomes then a golden thread that's going through all of those different areas. So in principle, if we're looking at it from maybe a project perspective, the steps that we've come through with are those 5 steps that are common to, I think, most projects, whether it be a new build or indeed a refurbishment or something of that nature. And what we've done is then looked against each of those and looked at what the benefits are of those. But what we'd like to do is in the workshops that we're having early in February, or in a couple of weeks' time, I think actually we've said that this one, haven't we, Richard? Sorry. We're going to be running a workshop, so we'll step through that so that people can share their experiences of the benefits that are coming, because we're trying to put a financial benefit behind these things, and also then looking at that from an asset management point of view. So, and what we've then done is distilled that down into some very practical outcomes that we can put some value against. So, for example, what's the value of having good quality information that's standardized and auditable? How can we put some value on the risk reduction across the whole life cycle? Really what this is intending to do is to create the business imperative for people that are doing a good job in managing information, but to be able to feed it up to senior directors to say, this is the reason we're doing this work, and then use that to then come up with some ways that we can communicate to people that, quite frankly, they're already paying for the work, the information to be collected. It's a matter of how we can then present it back and use it in different ways. So, for example, the meeting we had this morning on 5 strategies, it was clear that the way that we can bring the cost of that down and also make them far more effective is if the fire engineers, when they're putting together that information, have got good, reliable information to work to. So they are one consumer of well audited golden thread information. Tomorrow morning, we've got the digital handover working group or work stream. So there we've got people who are looking at this from an O&M perspective and addressing the fact that information often is being collected, perhaps not in a joined up way on projects. And the result is that it's not actually being used by the asset teams. We're finding that quite a lot with schools at the moment. So we've got a schools group, which if you're delivering schools, if you're involved in schools, put schools, if you just put schools in the chat, we can invite you to join with, we've got Waits, Wilmot Dixon, Beaumont and Kirkland, um, um, let me think who else, Binbox as well. Gary, I think you probably deliver schools, don't you? So it might be that you'd be interested in that as well. And we're also engaging with the technical advisors to come up with better ways that we can verify that information, and then also engage them with the schools to say, why aren't you using the handover information that's being provided? And that we'll come back to that on the 360s in a minute. Um, so what we want to then do is then turn this into something where we can get some tangible value-based analysis of what it's going to deliver. Now, to be frank, we've used ChatGPT to come up with those sorts of figures. So we fed into ChatGPT quite a lot of detailed information, and it's come up with some examples. We want to then do a lot more from a practical point of view, people that are experienced in doing this to be able to identify what are the cost savings that are going to be possible against each of those different sections. So broadly, that's what we're interested in. So if you're interested in maybe joining the group that's looking at the golden thread from a commercial perspective rather than simply a technical perspective, just put golden thread in the chat and we'll invite you to the meeting. Okay, that was it really.
Okay, so just to be clear, so this group, the Golden Thread group, this is going to be doing, what is it actually going to be doing? What's its purpose?
Its purpose is to identify what the golden thread is delivering for people, so that it's clear what it's actually doing.
What it's actually
And
doing. It's doing.
Yeah, and what the value is that's then coming from that can be translated into either cost savings or risk management. So that's it really.
So it's cost. So right, okay. I think that's clear. Right. So if anybody wants to get involved in helping us ascertain cost savings, value, looking really like getting into the nitty gritty, put golden thread in the chat. It could be anybody who's actually got some real life experience and knows X amount of work or this function or that activity, if it was done a different way, would save X amount of money or this kind of percentage of the budget. Great, we want to hear about it. So put golden thread in the chat. Okay, right. So now let's have a look at what we've been doing at the last meeting. Okay, there we go. Oh, it was a long while ago, wasn't it? Okay, so some of you will have been at this, some of you won't have. Let's see what we're right. So the purpose of the meeting was to look at how 360 imagery, drones, point clouds, and data integration can improve asset management, safety, and lifestyle documentation. Life cycle. A shift from disconnected information sets to federated smart 360s linked to BIM, COBie, O&Ms, and other data sources. Now, they've come up with what are the current challenges? Organizations hold fragmented information, BIM, CAD, O&Ms, and 360s, for example, with no unified structure. Manual audits and compliance checks are slow and error-prone. As-built models rarely contain complete asset data. 360s increasingly serve as the true and as-built record. Okay, so have we missed anything? What have we missed out? Is there anything there that you think, well, that's fine, but we should be including something else?
I think what would be useful as well, Richard, is obviously we've got some people here that are new, and
Yeah,
therefore they may not be familiar with what 360, the use of 360 for asset tagging and the like is.
yeah.
So I'm wondering if we could just have a straw poll a little bit to, because what obviously we don't want to do is
Well, yeah,
revisit the
we
stuff
don't
that
want to
we
make
did.
assumptions that you know about something and actually you don't. You wait for us to inform you, really, do we? Okay, so if you're not familiar, right, if you're familiar with 360 imagery and how it's used for asset tagging and the like, if you're not familiar with that, would you put your hand up? If no, if you are familiar with that, put your hand up. You know all about it. Okay, how are we doing? I can't see, George.
We've got a few.
Well, in that
Uh,
case, apologies to them. I think it's important, George, that you maybe have a run through and explain that.
yeah, so Paul Sheedy, Ruben, um,
Yeah.
Gordon, Gary. You're familiar with it, are you, Gary?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering whether it's worth running through um, some examples of how that as built.
I think so. I think well, yeah, if people aren't
We,
familiar with it, they need to
yeah,
know.
yeah. I mean, we've got plenty of people on the call who perhaps aren't that familiar with it. So, um,
Well, it's 3/4, so we need to do that, don't we?
yeah, good. Has anybody got, just whilst I'm doing that, has anybody got any observations of the success that they've had with using it, with using that type of thing?
Paul, I'm sure you have. Paul Sheedy.
Yeah, we're not using it massively extensively. I'm not using it as much as I wanted to use it inside the business, but it's certainly really good. We took up the right to a 3D LiDAR camera and it's helping, but we need to put, I think internally I need to push it harder with the teams here to use it more. But I've seen it really well illustrated by Barry and other people, yeah.
Yeah. Jack Hayes, where are you from,
Yeah,
Jack?
I'm in Murphy Geospatial
All right.
in Ireland.
So have you used it, Jack? Give us an example of how it's worked well for you.
In terms of 360,
Hmm.
Yeah.
mostly externally actually. As a visual tool for after GPR, as in a ground penetrating radar of pipe systems,
Okay.
a very cheap way to visualize that for kind of decision makers. So one of us would go out with a 360 camera on the selfie stick and either use an RTK GPS as the metadata stamps on it, or else just do the video and split it into images and then use the features from the pipes themselves that are visible at the surface, like the corner of drains,
Uh-huh.
to do control points for photogrammetry. Or there's a couple of 360 SLAM algorithms as well that can line up okay-ish. So it's not it's kind of a general view of the pipes. And
Sure.
then I made this custom web viewer to visualize it again. You know, and it'll get maybe within 10, 20 centimeters. And then there is another part onto that as well when going on site where the 360 images are used to do global localization for augmented reality, but there hasn't been a huge uptake on that part because, well, I suppose like you can just use RTK GPS for your augmented reality localization on site as well.
Yeah,
Um,
our focus is primarily on asset capture
mm,
and tagging those assets with
mm.
all kinds of metadata.
Oh
Mark
yeah.
Patton, have you been doing that? You're on mute, Mark.
My apologies. Office was busy coming out and the phones were going.
No worries.
Yeah, we use it predominantly for scanning existing buildings to create floor plans and geometry so
Okay.
that safety strategy can be done on safety plans, basically. What we find is that the world of BIM and Kobe and everything is much too complex for clients. I don't know many in the UK that have the facility to use these generated models, but the photogrammetry thing as an asset capture, I think, is fabulous. I think it's a really good tool.
It's user friendly, isn't it?
Mhm.
Right the way through.
Yeah, it's not an onerous process to use it, and the information that you can get back from it is highly detailed and very useful. It's a snapshot in time, like any photogrammetry is, but it can give you a good. It's good for condition reports. I think you can get a good feel for the condition, general condition of a building
And
from
how it's
photogrammetry.
deteriorating, can't you?
Yes,
For the next time.
because the highest
Julian,
risk buildings are the oldest
sorry,
ones, aren't they?
sorry.
Aren't the highest risk buildings the oldest ones? Historical
Absolutely.
buildings,
Yeah.
buildings that have been changed, compartmentation gone, you know, things like that. So I think photogrammetry is a good way of presenting it, presenting the assets that you have. I'm not sure about the methodologies that are being proposed and used currently, such as Kobe or Fiery as they call it. I think that's an absolute nonsense. The 3D CAD modeling software should map automatically to asset management software. You shouldn't have to dumb it down to a spreadsheet and then put it back into an asset management system that's clever. So
I
I'm
think
not,
that's Mark.
the
I
whole
think that
process at the moment, I think, is a bit skewed.
yeah, Mark. That's a misunderstanding. It's a common misunderstanding. But what you just said there isn't right. Kobe isn't a spreadsheet; it's a data schema. So it's a matter of just making sure that the information that is being provided is in a form that can then go into an asset management system. And trying to do all asset management systems are set up differently. In fact, the same software applications are set up differently for different companies, even within an organization.
Sure.
So it is important that that level of flexibility, that interfacing is done. But that's not the purpose of this meeting. But you're quite right that we need to make sure that translation is done
Yeah,
effectively.
I was making the point that you're dumbing something down from a really intelligent piece of software. You're dumbing it down, then you're putting it into another intelligent piece of software. Why not just do direct mapping? Isn't that something that Revit could do with asset management systems, regardless of the manufacturer of those systems? As a
No,
process, it
no,
should be identified as the right way of
that
doing
that
it.
yeah, essentially, I think we're going to get drawn off into something I can pick
Sure.
up with you separately,
Yeah, I
Mark.
don't want to get
Yeah.
too
But
technical, really.
yeah, but in answer to your question, the means by which you go from the intelligent information in models to the intelligent information in asset management systems is by having the right data schemas that are translating the information from one to the other. So that's what IFC is, and that's what Kobe is. Yeah, so I can explain to you the detail of that. I'd be
Yeah,
happy to do that.
yeah, sure. It's a
Let's
conversation for another time. I appreciate it.
Julian.
that's fine. Julian.
Hi everyone. I work for the British Museum, so client side. I've worked in BIM for many years, and we use Revit, Kobe, and the rest of it. And in relation to this conversation, we get a lot of scans from quite expensive, and we've got obviously a very old asset that's constantly changing. One of the recent cases we've had is we were able to use the data, which was primarily to build a 3D model for part of the British Museum. But we've been able to use that data for then incidental things about the collections themselves, which isn't really about the building, but the collections, in order for the design team to understand how heavy the collections are. We could use the volumes which were captured in the scan, which is accidental capturing in some ways. We were only interested originally in the walls and the floors and the ceilings, not the collections. But that was quite a good example of not wasting data, I think, in relation to earlier on. Now, another interesting point, which I think I've written into the chat, which we're concerned about with 360s or even more point cloud with the full depth captured as well. So you've got point clouds. One of the things we're concerned about now is that sometimes we want to share that 360, but we want to now black out sensitive areas that security, and sometimes point clouds don't give you the level of granularity to group points to say we only want to share these points with so and so, but we can share these points at a lower resolution with other people. Having the control from a security aspect is quite a key thing, and quite difficult as well, especially with the file size for point clouds. It's quite difficult. I think with photos, it's a little bit possibly easier, especially with image recognition to start doing that. But you need to be able to, on the client side, mark up the things that you don't want people that don't, even if you want to send a photo, but you want to black out certain things, or and also omit when you accidentally capture people in some of these things, especially in one of our issues is we never have a time to close down the building for public, because members of the public are always around. So we don't want to capture them at all. So sometimes 360 photos and even point clouds aren't necessarily the best thing, or they have to be timed at the right time as well.
Yeah, so certainly technically that's I say straightforward to do. It can certainly be processed in that way, Julian, too. But I absolutely agree with you that you've got something there that needs to be filtered and presented in different ways for different purposes.
Yeah, can I ask a question? What sort of file sizes are you encountering, Julian?
For the point clouds, you're talking about. The raw data is terabytes. It's massive. We tend to reduce the number of points to about 1 point in every 10 centimeters, because that's more than sufficient for. It depends what your use case is, but to make it much easier, that gets it down to less than a gigabyte, and that's for the size of the museum as well. So, which I would say that having two versions of the same data, the high res one, just in case you need to find where all the cracks are and you need to see them in the point cloud model. But generally, most people just want it for general spatial dimensions, and it doesn't matter if it was that point or the 10 centimeters away, to get the kind of dimensions that most people, level of accuracy that most people are trying to get in that initial sense. And then that gives them enough then to localize and do a more detailed, okay, yes, we definitely want that area at the high res, but we don't need the whole model at high res initially, especially to find out what's even available. We send a low res version first before sending on a high res.
Okay, Nagendra.
Hi, it's Mega, month of May Enga. Very
Oh, I beg
complicated
your
name, I
pardon.
understand.
I'm so
No,
sorry.
not at all.
I
Don't
missed the
worry.
comma. Sorry.
And then our business decides we don't want to follow norm either. So, you know, the surname comes before the first name. So, yeah, adds to the confusion. But yeah, so I work for Sweco, and we're a multidisciplinary consultancy across Europe and UK. We do a lot of the work that we're discussing here. But we also, for me personally, the passion is about the connectivity of that data, whether we're capturing, you know, photographs from site to represent what's been installed, or whether it's the metadata, George, you were talking about, that's actually comes from the design information itself during the design process, and how to keep all of that tied together using just unique IDs on assets. And it is possible to do so with proper asset management from the inset of design. And we've done that successfully now on a few projects and handed that data over into asset management tools as well. So Mark, I'm very passionate about what you spoke about in terms of, you know, why the hell do you dumb the data down? You're not essentially dumbing the data down. Like George was saying, you're putting it into a schema that from one system to the other to make it understand each other essentially. So yeah, that's what we do with this kind of thing. But just my thoughts on that is it isn't something that's out of the box. You know, everything needs proper setup. And if we, at initial stages, if we don't, when projects kick off, if you're not very mindful in terms of thinking about what data do we actually need from this particular project, what is needed for asset management, you know, who are the guys who are actually managing these assets? What Julian said, that a lot of what you were saying, Julian, described your need. So this is what individuals are using the data for. So you well understood, so you're able to modify the capture to suit. And all of that is very critical, you know, is my thoughts anyhow.
Absolutely. Thank you. Gary.
Hi, afternoon. Obviously, yeah, we're BAM UK and the digital team regarding 360. We've got quite a broad experience all the way from point cloud through to 360 capture, through to AI-enabled products as well. If I quickly just share my screen and give you some idea of what I'm talking about. So Hollow Builder is a product we are wholesale deploying on all construction projects. We made that decision last year, and it wasn't anything to do with our clients. It was to do with protecting our business, protecting ourselves from claims. So when we hand buildings over, 11 years later, we get a claim from a client who suggested that we didn't put the fire protection in properly. And we have paid out because we didn't have the evidence to prove the contrary. Added to that, we have claims from subcontractors who potentially fall off ladders because the lighting levels weren't correct. And then we use this technology to go back and say, actually, we scanned that room on that particular day and the lighting levels were absolutely fine. So we're actually using this as to protect our legacy. So, and it also there's, as you can see on from the slide, there's multiple benefits. We share the platform with our client, offering full transparency. So at any particular time, the client wants to look back through time and see what was above the ceiling, they can access that. So it's a piece of technology that's really easy to use. So it doesn't need my digital team to do it. We train our guys on site. They walk around and you can
Sorry,
see
Gary, where are you from?
It's from BAM.
BAM construction.
Yeah.
So this technology is deployed on all of our live projects. And again, as I've said, it's an easy technology, allows us to train our site teams to use it. And we've really seen the value in just protecting the business. This isn't a client requirement. moving on from that, and that's fairly basic stuff.
Yeah,
And-
no, no, no. I'm sorry. I think that's enough. We're not really getting into the technologies right now. That's not really the purpose today.
Okay.
We're still we haven't got to that stage yet. So I think
Well,
we need
well,
to.
Richard, if I could just say, I'm very interested in this, but I understand that we don't want to hijack the meeting.
Well,
I'd be
three-quarters
interested.
of the meeting don't even know what DAC, the 360 capture is. So I think it's a bit soon to be talking about technology, don't you?
Okay.
Okay. I'll turn off my.
What?
Sorry.
I'll tell you what. Let
What was
me.
the question? I'm struggling. What was the question? You wanted me to share my experience with BIM 360 or 360 products. I'm
Yes.
doing that.
I didn't say
What-
anything about
what-
products.
No, no.
Most-
This
most
isn't a product,
Technologies are
Richard.
related to a product. So I was just trying to show you the spectrum. Is
Yeah.
that not what you want to see?
No, I personally would like to see that, Richard. So if you don't mind me overriding it for the moment,
That's
I'd
fine.
like-
And well, it's not me, George. It's the three-quarters of the people in this meeting who don't
Yeah.
even know what 360 is. It's
That's what I'm
them.
trying to explain, Richard.
Yeah.
The technology here is explaining what it does. So forget the title Hollow Builder. This is a technology that is capturing 360 images.
Okay.
And you asked for a reason, and I'm giving you that reason.
Okay.
I'll just take one step further on. That's okay. So another technology that, and it is a technology, but it's a capability, is using AI-enabled 360 capture. So this is a number of products on the market that are doing this. And again, this is taking it to the next level. So not only are we capturing what's gone and what's being built in the room, it's actually measuring production as well. So the AI is understanding what it's seeing, is comparing that image to a program and giving us feedback whether we're on time or not. So that's just two types of technology related to 360 capture that we are currently deploying on our projects.
I think that's really important from the perspective that we opened up with, Gary, and that is that you're collecting this information for a specific purpose, or maybe two or three different specific purposes. But then because you're capturing it in a way that is shareable, it can be used for many different reasons. So that's a really important part of the golden thread philosophy.
It is. And like I said, in our experience, there are very few clients who actually ask us, I mean, we spoke about modeling. There's very few clients who ask us to validate that model, i.e. do a full cloud point or point cloud scan to verify that the sockets are within a certain tolerance, let's say, as an example. So that's not being asked for right now from the majority of our clients.
And I would argue from an asset management point of view, it's not important. It's not a priority at all, because if sockets are in the wrong place, then they're in the wrong place. It may be that somebody wants to use that for commercial reasons to do a claim or something like that. But from an asset management point of view, it is what it is.
Yeah.
There are much more useful things to be able to use it for.
Yes.
Richard, can I just show what we've been talking about for generally about this process?
Definitely, please do that.
Yeah. Okay, so just to reinforce the point that Gary's making, that this isn't about a specific technology, it's about a whole range of different solutions. What we've been doing, we're working, I'm talking about my company now, Active Plan, rather than for housing. All of those companies there are willing to work collaboratively. Many of them are producing 360 photography, walkthroughs, and it's a matter of how we can then add intelligence to those things. They're not all that, but certainly people like Open Space, Multi-Vista, Drone Deploy, they're all Matterport, they're all producing those types of 360 technologies now. It's common practice, but that information often isn't then being used in asset management circles. And one of the things that we're trying to tackle, and we're going to be covering this tomorrow in the handover meeting, is how can we take a situation where we've got models that have come through, we've probably got some CAD data, COBE information, as Mark was talking about earlier, O&M documentation, 360 photographs that are great. They've been picked for a certain purpose, but they're not connected. So the result is that when you're actually going through and validating them, it's actually quite difficult to do. So what we're trying to do is to make it so that we can reuse that information that's been collected for good purposes, and then make it so that it can then be fully auditable and connected. And a way of doing that is to be able to take the model information, if you've got it, and then bring that together into an environment. But where, for example, information, as we were talking about this morning on the fire strategy project, there's a lot of things that never get modelled because there's no need to put them in the models. They're coming through from change management processes like technical submittals. But the key thing is that the 360 photographs are actually what was installed, because that clearly is what's been there. So here's an example of a project that we did years ago, and this is a university in Dublin that that CISC built, and all of that, the 360 photography that's in there, those 360 photographs, that's a model, but the information is held in the database rather than in the model. So therefore, all of the information is then more easily managed, because it's being managed outside of the model. It's being managed in the tools that the FM people are familiar with. But this next bit is the key to that, is that you've got the asset data, but it's then connected through to 360 photography. So we've got the data, the model, and we've got the 360 photograph, all of which are connected. And I think that's one of the important ways that we could actually use the information much more easily, so that the BIM teams have done a great job in compiling all this information, but then how is it then kept up to date? So in this case, it's being used at handover to verify what was installed. So that's the detailed information, Mark, that's come through from COBE, through from product libraries as well, so that information is as detailed as you need it, not just in the CAFM system, but also in the asset management system, which is not the same thing. And then you've got a list there on the right-hand side of the assets that the project teams say that they've installed, and you can then go and verify that. So these 360 photographs can have been created using HoloBuilder or using OpenSpace or whatever technology, but then they're being reused by the asset teams. And I think that's an important aspect of that. And then this next one is showing how that can work as a complete Sodexo, the asset team, and Rattigans are the builders on this one. So here we've got a model, and you can then use it to identify, the 360s are going to identify where the fire dampers are in the building. But they can't do it on their own because 360 photographs are done. What we're doing is then tying it back to the manufacturer's product information. So that then becomes the part of the golden thread, which is then tying together the manufacturer's information with a very simple spatial model, a bit like what Mark was talking about earlier, something simple for the asset teams to be able to use. But the connection then, there's a dynamic connection between the asset in the schedule with where it is in the building. So the connection is between the 360 photograph and well, it's probably a very complex set of asset information. And the 360 photo is also connected to the O&Ms. So we've got again, a three-way connection between that, which can then produce the information that's needed to integrate with SFG 20, which is the maintenance standard, and therefore populate, in this case, it's populating an application called QFM. So those work instructions are actually coming through from that information. So that's where that's been done during a design and construction process. So this final one is showing how Sodexo are using it to be able to go and capture information from scratch on existing buildings. They do this as standard now. So just as Gary was saying, he's rolling that out across all of his portfolio. Sodexo are doing the same thing here. They've got about 300 buildings now with this in place, and the productivity gains of doing that are huge. You end up with being able to, rather than a manual inspection, creating asset information by sending people to site, you can do 6 or 8 times the number of assets in a day, and you've got much higher levels of validation.
How do they? Somebody, what happens? Somebody goes in. They've got a digital. They've got a digital camera. All right, you're going to show this now.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So the basically simple £400 camera. They don't need to do any point clouds or anything like that. They're just using this to be able to capture the information, and then the experts back in wherever, they don't need to go to site. They're actually capturing that information and creating the asset list from the 360 photographs. And those tags are intelligent tags, which then can be used to do the connections both ways. I know that some of the people on this call have seen this before, probably many times, but a lot of people haven't. So therefore, I think it's worth reinforcing it. So this is normal common practice now, where each of those tags that have been put in there have actually been assigned by somebody that's an expert in either mechanical or electrical or fabric, so that we've actually got the level of expertise, and we've got a record of what they were looking at when they made that selection. And again, that's translating that back into the information. So overall, what we're doing is we're providing the way of training people that aren't experts, so that people are being trained, but we're also using it to train AI. So that's broadly, I think, where we're going with this. And I think, I'd like to talk to you, Gary, about how we could coordinate what you're doing and do some shared learning on that. And anybody else that's using, I mean, as far as you're concerned, Mark, you're principally taking the 360s to help you produce the floor plans. But
yeah, in a very simple way, in its
Yeah.
simplest form, George.
Yeah, so that being the case, it may be that there's value to be added to turn those 360s into intelligent asset data that's searchable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is an evolving field at the moment, and people like yourselves will make it happen through collaboration. I think there's so many new technologies out there that collaborative means are definitely the way to go with this. Gary, I love what you're doing with the HoloView. Lovely. I'd like to see a bit more of that at some point. So hopefully we can hook up at some time and you can share some of that with us. I'm very impressive with that.
Like I say, I mean that technology now seems very old, believe it or not. That we're now
Yeah.
looking at the next generation of that 360 camera, which is AI enabled 360.
Yeah, you're
images.
developing it. It's
I know. So
evolving. Yeah.
there's products out there now that they can recognize what it sees, and that's for us the game changer. It can recognize if it's looking at a painted wall or a plastered wall, or the wall's not been plastered, and then it can then compare the program and tell us whether we're on program or not, and then do some analysis about resource. So it's not perfect, but we are piloting it on a number of projects because we see this as the next generation of technology that allow us to build projects on time, because that's one of our biggest problems. Building things
I'll
on
be
time.
watching.
Yeah, it's we're starting to see the software vendors as well adopt AI as well. That's going to be a game changer.
Yeah. Can I just make a point, George, on earlier on when I made the comment about Kobe and being a dumb spreadsheet taken from an intelligent program to then put in to another intelligent program. What I was talking about was the mapping process between softwares, so that identifiers within a CAD model are automatically mapped to an asset management system, rather than all that. I think that does is lend to errors and big file sizes. But I directly mapped, I don't know if you do this, Gary, at all, but mapping from 3D software into asset management. And that's a software link thing. That's not an operational process thing. That's just someone for the software vendors. You'd think they'd be able to do that by now.
Mark, we've been doing it now for about 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm explaining to you, which I'm happy to do offline, but I'm happy to do it online as well. So we can deal with that. The method by which you achieve what you're talking about there is having a proper taxonomy and classification system within the models that are being created, and then being able to transform that information into the right format that will then go into the various different systems, because there isn't one CAFM system.
Yeah.
Nobody uses one CAFM system. They'll use different systems for different purposes. For example, Maximo, which certainly Sodexo and Equans and people like that who are our clients use, they principally use that for planned and preventative maintenance work. They don't use it for asset management.
Yeah.
They'll use other things for asset management, for life cycle work. They'll even use other applications for doing compliance checking. And all of those systems need information in their format. Yeah, so therefore it is important to be able to take the key information, the locations of things, what's been installed, what system is it part of, and then making sure that that information then is transformed into the whatever applications that particular client is using.
Yeah, I get it, George. I just think with the evolution of technology will come a simpler way to do that transfer between a model and an asset management system. And it should be down to software vendors to try and assist you guys out in the field that are doing this with that link and make it easier for you.
That's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anybody that's interested in that, please speak to us. But you see the number of software companies we're a software company, but we're working collaboratively with many other software companies. And our goal, because we specialize in asset information management, what you're saying is exactly what we do and have been doing for years. I mean, we're working on projects at the moment where we've got 15,000 documents that have been handed over as part of the O&M. We've got a BIM model that's been handed over. We've got other data sets, and none of them are consistent with each other.
Standards.
Yeah. So
just a question from me then. In the 15 years, I know I've done a bit of work with you in the past. Predominantly, who's your client? Is it health, education, social housing? Who predominantly is asking for your product, Active Play?
Our major customers tend to be the FM contractors and also some building owners. Yeah.
Right, okay.
So the what Mark's talking about is exactly what we do, because at the end of the day, the clients need our clients who are the FM contractors. They need the quickest and easiest way to mobilize their systems, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, that makes sense because we're not getting that clear brief from our clients about what they want to do with the asset. We just providing models and data, and it's over to them, and then I think they look at it and go, right, we need to pull this all together. That's where you come in.
Exactly. And we also start before the project starts as well. So one of the messages I would give here is there's a lot of work going on at the moment that we're now party to, that's looking to integrate taxonomies, classifications, and things like that. So Uniclass, NRM, SFG20, all being brought together in a way that's joined up. Now, there's some challenges with that, as ever.
Yeah, sure there is.
But it's an active thing that we're involved in. And if anybody's interested in participating in that, which is classification and standardization, then just put standardization into the chat. I mean, I'll pick up with. I know that you'll be interested in that, Gary. But if anybody else is interested in it, please put standardization into the chat, and we'll involve you in those conversations. I know Shervin from GS1 is also part of that discussion, so we can include that.
Are you talking to any British Standards Institute people at Georgia about standardization, or any ISO people?
Yeah, I'm actually on a couple of the panels that are writing the standards. I'm part of the team that is there's two new standards that are just kicking off at the moment. Both of them are reassessment, or I'm involved in both of those.
Yeah, I saw that there was a couple of the standards were under development at the moment. So
yeah,
work in progress. Yeah.
There's new FM
something I've been
standard.
big on for years is standards and consistency and simplifying things rather than making them complex. I've been trying to simplify them, keep file sizes down, usability up. As
Absolutely.
a methodology.
Yeah, in part what we're trying to do with BIM in asset management is to create some best practice standards which are more pragmatic than the highly technical standards, because BSI and ISO, they've got to try and address everything for everybody, which is a real challenge. You end up with things that aren't really very clear because they're having to present things in different ways for different circumstances. So what we're trying to do is to make it so, for example, the fire strategy group this morning, what we're coming up with is a standard methodology of what information do you need to produce a fire strategy plan, and then how do you then make sure that that information is then communicated to people that are providing the information, so that it's then standardized. Gordon.
Yeah, thanks. Contributions from everybody, fantastic. I think one of the things we've got to remember is a lot of clients maybe just simply do one building, so they don't actually have a model that they actually truly understand fully. So the advances that are being demonstrated and expertly demonstrated this morning, and as Mark says, and the industry are embracing new sensor technology that is effectively continually monitoring the performance of systems, but actually alerting clients to when there's a problem or not, as the case may be. So if it ain't fixed, if it ain't broken, don't start twiddling about with it. You know, just leave it as it is rather than doing maintenance for maintenance sake. So our clients, you know, in this technology sector where we're delivering live system data directly on a daily basis, 24/7, when nobody's there, that's alerting them to when a problem occurs. They don't understand what's creating the problem, and to be honest, some of the FM contractors out there don't understand what's creating the problem, and that's been half of the issue.
Yeah.
That transparency and innovation is being somewhat disruptive. But I thought Gary's demonstration earlier on was tremendous in the sense of we've got another large construction contractor, who Gary knows very well, who has embraced our technology because they see the benefit from managing their risk. They recognize risks in their businesses that they've been very concerned with, but not had a technology solution to answer that problem and demand. Now, at the same time, we've been working away for years, changing guidance, industry guidance on these matters to embrace the technology, the new innovative technology, as either best practice or in relation to HNTAS at the moment, the Heat Network Technical Assurance Scheme, as we move to embrace carbon reduction in our heating and cooling systems, we're effectively moving that from best practice to minimal requirement. Because a contractor will only put anything in if it's on the drawing, it's in the spec, or it's requested. If it ain't requested, you ain't getting it. Full stop. Unless Gary and BAM have seen a requirement where it's been advantageous to the process that they've implemented regardless of cost. But that's pretty seldom the case, to be honest, and a great deal of applause to BAM for doing it. But your standard contractors are not really doing that. They're doing bare minimum, and some of them are getting away with it. But that is really changing massively in the last 3 to 4 years. And that's where I keep on saying to people, Grenfell and the Building Safety Act is not going to stop at fire penetration and fire safety. It's about better performing buildings.
Yeah.
Gary.
No, I just concur that, you know, one claim on one of our buildings pays for the entire enterprise. So one of the claims for a building, in fact, was in Wales, was north of £100,000, and that £100,000 is now, you know, the enterprise covers that. It's all about protecting the business, particularly now we're entering the world of claims from clients, from supply chain, and new legislation, and the ability for us to go back and have a look at a building, because what a very short corporate memory. Once we've handed the building over, we've forgotten about it after 2 years. And historically, we had a really poor record, and we didn't take photos of everything. But 360 imagery allows us to go back in time and check things that we didn't check before. And added to that, product recalls. There are product recalls happening all the time, where we rely on our supply chain to tell us what we've installed.
Yeah.
You know, we're contractors have got really poor records of what we built. So having a full audit from foundation to final clean of a project allows us to go back in time and do our own due diligence. So it's just allowing us a better understanding of the legacy we're left behind.
I think the important thing with that, Gary, is the bridge between having the 360 records, having the BIM model, right,
Yes.
and making sure that the 360s and the BIM are actually consistent.
In the right place. Yeah.
Yeah. Because what typically we find is that what's in the BIM model, and therefore to a great extent what's in the COBie, aren't actually what was installed.
No.
Yeah. And that's you know, most, it's probably not the case with BAM, because I've got huge respect for BAM. I've worked with you for years, and the quality is normally higher than most, but the technical submittal process of being able to record what was actually being installed, it's not in your control necessarily. It's often the subcontractors. It's whether the subcontractors are actually recording what they actually install. And I think that's part of the process that we're trying to encourage. The 360 photography is a mechanism to help with that. And importantly, you know, what normally happens, in my experience, is that for the first year or so after the building's finished, maybe 20% of the items that were installed gets changed.
Yeah.
Because of failure and because of variations and things like that. That mechanism that needs to be kept up to date. Gary Richmond, you had your hand up earlier, Gary. Are you there at the moment?
Yeah, I'm here.
So with your experience, Gary, because I know that you've been doing this for years as well, what would your take be on what we've just been discussing? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I mean, it's got very valid uses as an asset capture tool. Even from to go back to the main point that we were aiming for in this meeting, as a surveying tool to capture assets on site, it's a very strong tool. We've always said whenever we do any sort of asset capture, we always say that we can't 100% do it digitally. We say it's sort of like either like a 90-10 split or a 95-5% split, where you're going to need that physical boots on the ground surveyor. But we've been capturing assets via 360 photos for years. Successfully being able to create full asset lists. Then from creating the full asset list, we've been able to do asset management plans and PPMs for various clients via doing that.
Yeah, one of the critical things that they're doing is to create a baseline from which everybody agrees that's what they're maintaining. Now, that may sound blindingly obvious, but in most cases, when somebody like Equans or Sodexo or Mighty are appointed, they're told that they've got 40,000 assets to maintain across this portfolio. And actually, when they get into it, they find there's 60,000. And what do you do about that? Do you know, you've probably provided a fixed price. You need to very quickly, when the project is being mobilized, you need to be able to identify that the number of assets is different, and also which assets are you maintaining, because some of the projects that Gary works on, like hospitals and schools, they've got, it's very complex, and the determination as to what they're actually managing
There's only one of our George. There's only one of our clients in the UK that's that advanced, and that's the Manchester Airport Group.
Yeah.
So we are logging assets in their asset, and in fact it's Maximo. So we are putting QR codes on all of their assets and registered in their system as a sort of seamless way to hand over. So they're our most probably progressive of clients.
Yeah.
Because they clearly understand when this airport terminal opens, it can't be a soft opening. It's got to go and it's got to be working, and they need to understand how it works from day one. So they are really on board and are really data focused.
Probably 20 years ago, Gary, we worked with Manchester Airport Group.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were walking around we were going through an audit, and we actually identified that the generator that was controlling the landing lights, there was 2 generators, and the spare had never been commissioned. It had been maintained, apparently, for many, many years, but it had never been made. It had never been commissioned.
Yeah.
So I can absolutely understand why it's so critical to them.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think has anybody else got any observations to make? I mean, what we're interested in now is looking at applying this. We've got several projects that we've already been developing as pilots for this, and we'd like to get more of an understanding from people as to whether they're interested in working on those. We've worked already, Jack, with Murphy's in the past. In terms of the asset capture side of things, is that something that you'd be interested in getting involved with?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but as long as I can kind of flesh out better and have a better idea, and probably bring in a couple of the managers to really get buy-in.
Yeah, I know Dermot quite well, so certainly that should be a worthwhile thing to do.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Richard, could we pull back up? Oh, sorry, Pierre, you've got something to say.
Sorry, George. Yeah, one thing that I think would be really useful, I keep using that term scenario, but I think it would be really good, somebody like Gary from a contracting side, Mark from production, CAD documentation, design engineering, right the way through the whole life cycle. The benefit would be what happens with the handover? What are the things that are going in? Because in my point of view, I think we've got part of that golden thread is right from the first decision to put in a system, right the way through till it gets to Gary as a product that's been selected, particularly different contract types, etc. But what it is the scenarios, and those would make little groups. What am I handing over? What am I getting? And it makes a lot more awareness of the bigger picture, because I made a comment there earlier. We got tier 1 contractors, but we go all the way down to a little white van across the road here. And there's nothing happening with them being able to record what they've done. The part M, I think it is now, the closing up before you hand over, piping and the services, etc., that are being concealed. That is a massive learning curve for the whole industry. Anyway, but that's the first part. That's my thought. Thank you.
The beauty of that, Pierre, is that it would be relatively easy to ask them to just use the 360 camera to snapshot what they've done.
Yeah, we just from a main contractor point of view, all the way down to the one-man band, we give them a platform. All they need to have is a phone, and they capture imagery of if they've installed a boiler. They'll give us the data associated with that boiler and some imagery of the boiler being installed. That's captured then as an asset, and we can then pass that on to our client. So we are very conscious. We need a technology that's really easy to use from every trade, from a bricklayer to a plumber to a pipe lagger. And they all have access to the same platform, which is really easy to use, allows them to get the information they need to install it, but vice versa, supply us with the information about the asset, the date they installed it, some certification, maybe some images of the installed asset or whatever they've produced. That then creates part of that bigger data set.
Yeah, I think actually as the whole industry would get the benefit of, with the apprentice scheme as an example, is that you've got people that are not technically shy.
Yes.
And when you start engaging with clients and the people across the road here are paying for building, and I'm watching stuff happening and I'm sitting here and going, no.
50% of my team's time is spent training and repeat training. We continually train our supply chain, the troops on the site, our build teams, our architects, our clients, our FM teams. So we are continually trying to increase the digital maturity of the project team.
Good one. Thank you.
Gordon.
George, guys, just the biggest thing as well, and I speak as vice chair of the BISA affiliates, so the Building Engineering Services Association, the affiliate groups that supply them with material. Their biggest fear at the moment is the age demographic of the contractors that are installing the heating and plumbing equipment in all the building services projects. And this demographic that's in this committee, unfortunately, has got too many grey hairs in it for us to be confident that training's not required. Training's got to be delivered, and that goes all the way through, again, commend BAM for their actions that they're doing, but the apprentice training regime that's collapsed in our industry, how we're engaging with youngsters. Youngsters don't want to necessarily come on wet and windy and horribly cold building construction sites. We've got to encourage them to come back. We've got to show them that digital technology is in that new industry and that they can embrace it. But it's not an easy task, and I know that BISA and SIBS, and I mean SIBS are slightly easier because most of the design engineers unfortunately spend most of their time in the offices and don't go anywhere near the sites. But the construction side is a real issue from the contractor side of things. I don't know how we solve it, but we're trying to get somewhere along that process anyway.
Okay, so I mean, from my perspective, Richard, could we come back to the document as to the next actions? I can't remember what it was at the end.
Right. Yes. Is Watney Market and the data centers still going as sandboxes?
Watney Market is about to start again. So there's been some delays on both of them. But yes, that's quite possible. Yeah. We actually need some more examples to be able to work to. So it may be that that's something that maybe Mark or Gary or somebody may have projects that we could bring in so that we could use as training material. We've got, Gary, we've got something like 150,000 assets that have been tagged in 360 photographs that have been done. So that's providing quite strong training material. So if people have got 360s that have been taken for different purposes, like Mark's doing, for example, then is that something, Mark, that you'd be interested in collaborating on?
Well, I'd have to get my clients buy-in to it.
Of course.
Yeah, but I
you've
have
got different clients.
no issues with sharing and collaboration with anybody to make things better. On the point of technology and training, we suffer in the CAD industry from a job that years ago my dad used the pens. He was an architect and drew plans. Now we're using 3D technologies. The jobs become more complex. There is no indentured apprenticeship for CAD people. It's one of the things I'm trying to encourage, because kids are coming to me and they're very tech savvy. They pick it up so quickly, but what they lack is the site experience, as Gordon mentioned. That there's a real disparity there. They've got the ability and the nous to be able to use the tools, but they don't have the practical site knowledge to be able to use them in process effectively. And the training thing, well, it's one thing I'm trying to encourage is to bring back apprenticeships for CAD people. The old drafting used to be the best apprenticeship in the UK. It hasn't existed for 40 years, and I think we've suffered from that. There's a lot of onus being put on modelers with new technologies and new software, but very little training apart from software vendor training to go with it. And I think the kids today, I think they would welcome the initiative to learn these new technologies such as Gary's using. As you said, people pick it up quite very quickly on site. You make the platform available and people are able to use it. So I'm a big fan of that, of encouraging youngsters. So I've always done that. I've always taken on work experience and tried to train myself, because there's no training in the colleges for what we do, or universities. Very, very little. And I think that's a failing. So training is a key aspect of what you're all talking about. And I think Gary addressed that. They train 50% of the time. They do a lot of training and it's continuous. And I think we do the same thing. So training, I think, will be an active part in all this. We can have all the discussions we like, but we've got to get youngsters trained up to use this tech effectively.
I think that would be a good first step. In fact, maybe Richard, that we arrange something on 360s, the use of 360s, and what coming up with some standard methodologies. So, in other words, sorry.
Well, the last meeting, the aim was determined build a collective best practice framework for 360 driven asset management informed by real projects and expert input. So that was what was decided last time, build a collective best practice framework.
So I think that's something that we could. So is anybody interested in doing that, specifically sharing their knowledge and expertise? If you're interested in that, then put that together in, what should we call it, Richard? Training?
Right. Put best practice.
Best practice
in the chat. If you're interested in getting something down, something concrete down that we've got literally on paper.
Good.
Best practice. That's what we need. Outputs.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely.
And I'll pick up, Gary, with you, if I may, afterwards, also with you, Mark. If anybody else wants a one-to-one with me on this, I'm very happy to do that. But I think if we can arrange it, maybe a half-hour session, Gary.
Yeah. George, have you spoken to anyone about FM, George?
No, not for years.
Right. Okay. I think it'd be worth a chat.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be in touch and we'll get. So we've got 2 more sessions tomorrow. I appreciate this is quite a long time-consuming thing to do, but I think what we're doing is building quite a lot of bringing together of really very experienced people who are sharing what they know, and we can work from each other. So the one in the morning is on digital handover. That's at 11 o'clock. And then the one in the afternoon is on AWAB's law, which is the new legislation that's been put in place largely for social landlords. But a lot of the things that are involved in that, they're about ventilation and damp and mold, but also emergency electrical situations as well. So that, Gary, do you build any residential? I don't think you do you? No.
No, in the Netherlands we do, but not in the UK.
Yeah.
Too volatile.
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. But if anybody's interested in either of those, then you're obviously welcome to come along. Good. Richard, hand back to you.
Okay, great to see everyone. Another lively session. Remember, we've got the forum, our monthly forum, on the 14th at 11 a.m. So that's next Thursday. So if you haven't already received an invitation, well, you certainly would have received probably 3 invitations by now. But if you haven't signed up for anything, put it in the chat and we'll make sure we'll get hold of you.
It's Wednesday, Richard, not Thursday.
Wednesday, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
We normally have probably 150 to 200 people on those.
Yeah, it's 150 to 250. It varies a lot.
Good. Okay.
Well, thanks for putting it on. Appreciate
Cheers,
it.
guys.
Thanks, gents.
Oh, sorry, Piers. Sorry, there's something else you were going to say, Pierre. Sorry.
I was actually going to compliment Gary and say one of the things is ECI is that all this thing about the best practice actually involves engagement from the design to the person who's going to execute it, so that the young people actually understand it's a posi drive screw, not a brass wood screw.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're screwed. Okay, apologies for that. But in reality, that's the part that I think we really have to do, is a bit of hands-on, because as you're designing, you're already understanding how it's assembled, how it's going to actually be implemented. Anyway, that was my thought. Thanks very much. Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Pierre. Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay, I need to drop off. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.